come with me in your imagination to a beautiful early summer's evening. It's warm, it's humid outside, it's right around dusk, about 7 o'clock at night. The sun is just over the horizon, and a tired businessman is walking across the rooftop patio of his 4-story office building. He's had a really long day, and maybe he's got a cup of coffee or a bottle of water or something. And he's walking across the roof, and the warm breeze is blowing, and the summer is finally here. And so he sits kind of at the edge of the building, kicks his feet up, and just is enjoying the evening. When all of a sudden, by chance, he happens to look down because his office complex kind of borders a residential neighborhood. He happens to look down, and he sees this strikingly beautiful woman in her backyard. And she's enjoying the evening too, except she has on a robe and she's let the robe fall open. And so she's naked, enjoying the evening. Now, she's not an immoral woman. She's not a bad woman. She's a good woman. She's an honest woman. She's a married woman. Her husband is off in the military, and in her innocence, she's just enjoying the evening, thinking she's all alone and no one can see her because of the high tree line that surrounds her backyard like a fence. She doesn't know that this gentleman can see her. But as this gentleman, his by-chance quick glance turns into an admiring gaze, he starts to look longer and longer at her. He's admiring her beauty, and he's thinking to himself, I can't remember the last time I've seen anyone who looked so beautiful before. And so as his by-chance glance turns into an admiring gaze, the gaze turns into attraction. The attraction turns into curiosity. The curiosity turns into lust, which turns into action, which turns into sin, which in the course of one night will change the course of their lives forever. I want to finish this story the way Roberta Dorr wrote about it in her book, David and Bathsheba. She said this, backlit by the early evening yellowish glow of the setting sun, Bathsheba stood naked. Unknown to her, David's unexpected, startling glance turned into an admiring gaze. As he continued to watch her, he thought he'd never seen anyone so beautiful or graceful before. His attraction turned into curiosity, which turns into lust, which turned into action, which turned into sin, which changed the course of their lives. For in that one night, there was a knock at the door. And then a baby was conceived. A marriage was violated. Adultery was committed, lies were told, a cover-up was tried. Eventually a murder was planned and a husband was killed. And eventually an innocent baby died because of a night when a long, admiring look turned into lust. The lesson today about more morality is not so much about against physical attraction. It's about more morality in our minds. Because it's natural and it's normal to be physically attracted to the opposite sex. Ever since God created Adam and Eve, and Adam looked at Eve and went, Yesha, physical sexual attraction between a man and a woman has always been the designed intention of our God. And that physical attraction is designed to result, in part, in the pleasurable procreation of the human race within the covenant of marriage. Which is one reason why homosexuality isn't healthy. It isn't natural. It isn't normal. It isn't holy. Because heterosexuality can do that which homosexuality cannot do. And if the human race were left to only homosexuals or homosexuality, the human race would literally only last one generation. Because homosexuality cannot reproduce the human race. The human race needs heterosexuality in order to be able to reproduce itself. That goes to healthiness. So heterosexuality, designed by God, a man attracted to a woman attracted to a man, is healthy. It is normal. In the confines of marriage, it is holy. There's nothing wrong about being physically attracted to somebody of the opposite sex. The hinge is what you do with that attraction. It wasn't wrong for David to by happenstance glance and see Bathsheba. It wasn't wrong for David to look at her and say, that's a good-looking woman. What was wrong is what David did or what he didn't do after that initial look at Bathsheba. You see, what happened to David happens to every teenage boy and most adult men who look and linger too long looking at the loveliness of a beautiful girl or a beautiful woman. And in our society, whether they're clothed, naked, nearly clothed, or nearly naked, whether they're live or as seen on TV, because in our overcharged, oversexed society, you can't hardly look at anything these days without seeing beautifulness and provocativeness and sexuality. I tried this week to pay attention to TV shows, to see if I could get through a whole TV show without there wasn't something that was provocative or something that was the least bit sensual. I couldn't get through one TV show except sports. Well, and even that, when they show the cheerleaders, you go, wow, that's a good-looking woman there and everything. It's not wrong, it's not unnatural or unnormal to be attracted to the opposite sex. It's what you do with that once it enters your mind. So sometimes the lines between love and lust, they get blurred and confused in our minds. The basic difference, if you can remember it this way, is this. Love always goes towards the betterment of somebody else. Love always goes towards what can I do to that person or do for that person to better their lives, to bless their lives. Whereas lust is always coming back itself. What am I going to get out of this? How am I going to feel? How is this going to gratify me and my flesh? So the lines between love and lust sometimes get blurred and confused together. But the odd thing is they both seem to flow out of a natural attraction. But then that attraction leads to temptation, which James chapter 1 tells us is tied to lust, which is tied to sin, which ties you to things you ought not to do with that what was initial attraction. James 1, it says, when anyone is tempted, no one can say that God is tempting them, because God does not tempt anyone with sin. Each person is tempted, then dragged away by their own evil desires. After desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. When sin is fully grown, it gives birth to death. So temptation comes at the perversion of the innocent, natural attraction and curiosity that you have about the opposite sex, but left out of control, like a child who just wants what they want, and then they think with naive naivete and nearsightedness that it's all right, it won't hurt me. Now, often sexuality is tied to the emotions of self-esteem. What do I mean by that? Oftentimes, especially in teenagers, but also in people who are in their college years and even older, our sexuality is tied to the emotions of our self-esteem. We see our self-worth and value through the eyes of other people around us. You know, it's the teenage girl that starts feeling really good about herself because this certain boy likes me. This certain boy is attracted to me. This certain boy talks to me. This certain boy asked me out. They start feeling really good about themselves. I'll tell you something, ladies and girls. It's the same way for boys. When I was a teenage boy, I liked it when certain girls liked me. When I was a grown adult man, I liked it when Karen liked me. I felt better about myself. I was seeing my worth through her eyes. I was going, man, I must be something because a beautiful woman like Karen is attracted to me. She actually likes me and likes to hang out with me. And she talks to me. And you feel good about yourself. Guys start flexing a little bit more and feel a little bit more of themselves. And girls start going, oh, you're so cute. I want to get this way. We have to be very careful. Listen to this. We have to be very careful that we don't funnel our self-esteem through our sexuality. Because all of a sudden, when that boy or that girl breaks up with us, or that boy or that girl doesn't like us, then all of a sudden we're devastated. And we feel terrible about ourselves. All of a sudden, the person that looks back at us in the mirror, they look different than they used to look just a week ago. A week ago, we liked what we saw. But now little Jimmy or Johnny or Janie or Joan, she doesn't like us anymore. He doesn't like me anymore. So now I look at the man or woman looking back at me in the mirror, and I feel bad about myself. Why? Because I funneled my self-esteem through my sexuality, through attraction. So in a world that is overstimulated and inundated with sexuality, where everybody's brought into Satan's lives, that it's okay to put anything on television, anything on the internet, anything in magazines, anything in movies, anything in lives, relationship, and society, because really no one will get hurt. Because we live in a society like that, I've come up with 4 things that we need to do in order to bring more morality back into our lives as sexual beings created by God to be this way. Number 1, everyone needs to guard their heart. Proverbs 4:23, it says, "Guard your heart. It is the wellspring of life." And when you slow down and you think about that proverb, it is really true. Our lives are more emotional than they are intellectual. We react and act to things more emotionally than we do intellectually most days of the week. And so God is saying, guard your heart. Guard your self-worth. Guard your self-esteem. Guard your value. Don't see your worth through the eyes of somebody else. See your worth and value through the eyes of God. Now, secondly, this is to men and boys. Watch what you watch. Watch what you look at, men and boys. What do you think would have happened? Oh, if David simply would have walked away from the edge of his roof. If he would have said, yep, she's good looking, and I'm going over here because I'm a married man. I've got other wives. That's this whole cultural discussion in itself. I'm not preaching polygamy. But it's true. He didn't have one wife, he has other wives. But he said, I'm a married man, and she's a married woman. I don't belong on this corner of my roof anymore. I belong over there. It doesn't matter that it was an innocent happenstance glance. The happenstance glance turned into an admiring gaze, which turned into a long look, which turned into temptation, which turned into sin. So we have to simply watch what we watch. We have to watch what we look at. We have to turn it off and turn away from that. And you say, well, Pastor, it's hard. And I say, I know. Who said holiness was easy? Holiness is not easy, but it's doable, because greater is the Holy Spirit of God in me than anything else that's in this world. Which brings me to the third thing we have to do, and that is we have to practice mind control. Do you know that you control your thoughts do not control you? You can let your thoughts control you, which would be stupid, but you can man up or woman up and say, I will control what I think of, and I'll control what I don't think about. Billy Graham, there's a lot of great stories about Billy Graham. Everybody knows who Billy Graham is, great preachers. But there's a lot of great backstories about Billy Graham, too, when he wasn't on stage and preaching. And when he was, one story is he was riding the car in New York. Just got off the plane, a bunch of handlers, local people, taking him to the place that he was going to. And they drove up and they stopped, and there was this strikingly beautiful woman standing on the street corner. Now, I know, a strikingly beautiful woman standing on the street corner in New York. Maybe she was working, maybe she wasn't, I don't know. But she was a beautiful woman standing there. And nobody knew what to, all of a sudden the conversation just died in the car. Because nobody knew what to say. You know, we can't just say, wow, that's a really good looking woman. We got Billy Graham in the car. We can't, we gotta act like eunuchs, you know. Not, you know, that type of thing. All of a sudden, Billy Graham broke the silence by kind of half chuckling and going, well, God did a really good job on her, didn't he? You can't keep birds from swooping at your head, but you can keep them from building a nest there. It's true. You can't keep birds from swooping at your head. Birds are like thoughts. You can't keep thoughts from swooping at your head. You're guys with eyes. You see things. But you can stop them from building a nest there. You can swat them away. You can say, you know what? I'm going to change the channel. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to turn off, I'm going to turn away, I'm going to think about something else. You see, mind control is all about changing your mind in those moments. And letting the Holy Spirit help you, like it says in Romans chapter 12, by the renewing of your mind. Now, ladies, it would be wrong to admonish guys with eyes if I didn't remind women to please watch what you wear. Because all guys have eyes. And Bathsheba wasn't trying to turn David on, but the natural attraction between a man and a woman kind of did. So ladies, because all guys have eyes, I'm just saying, please watch what you wear around us. Because you don't want to throw gasoline on an already burning fire within us. But the principles and the practices and the philosophies of verse 9 still apply to every Christian woman today. And it simply says this: women are to dress modestly, with decency and propriety. So just watch what you wear. Now, I want you to be fashionable, you want to be fashionable, and I do not believe in dress codes. And I do not believe we dress the same way today that we dressed back in the 50s and in the 60s and stuff. And I want my wife and I want my daughters to look good and be fashionable and everything, and I want you ladies to look good and be fashionable. So I'm not talking about dress codes, I'm just talking about watch what you wear. Watch what you wear, because all guys have eyes. I'm just talking about helping your Christian brother out, helping your Christian pastors out, thinking about your public reputation as a Christian woman or a teenage girl. And simply just dress modestly. Physical attraction to the opposite sex is natural, it's normal, it's healthy, it's the way we were designed by God for it to come to fruition in the covenant of marriage. David was a good man. David wasn't a peeping Tom. David wasn't a dirty old man. He was a guy who had a heart after God's own heart. He was a good guy who was attracted to a beautiful woman. What got him into trouble is he didn't guard his heart. He didn't watch what he was looking at. He didn't change the channel by controlling his mind. And he got into trouble and made some terrible mistakes when innocent attraction led to temptation, which led to sin. We can bring more morality of God into our lives and then into our country, into our culture, and in our relationships and in our communities, as we will more value what God values in life according to His Word. As we will want more of God in our lives and value what God values, and if we will do that, we will avoid the unintentional consequences of the snares and the seduction of our own sexuality.